when you take guns away from law-abiding citizens, then it just leaves it open for the criminals to be the ones with the weapons.
Welcome, everybody, to Conversations That Matter. I'm your host, Alex Newman with the New American Magazine. We have a very special guest with us today. Her name is Charity Berry, and she has set down an incredible apprenticeship for the time being, and she'll tell us a little bit about that, to serve her country. And she is now running for office. She's running in Wisconsin's 2nd U.S. House District. And she's got a really unique platform, really values freedom. So we thought we'd bring her on the program and have a chat. Charity, thank you so much for joining us today. Tell us real quick, why are you running for U.S. House? What do you think you could do better than the current socialist Democrat who occupies that seat?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm running against Mark Pocan, who is our 10-year incumbent here in the 2nd District. And he is essentially Biden's right-hand man. He supports everything he does, and we are seeing the fruits of those far-left policies. You referenced that apprenticeship that I set down. It was in music engraving, which is a little-known trade that was hit hard by COVID because when choirs aren't performing and orchestras aren't playing, and the whole country's locked down, they don't pay to get their music edited. And so 2020, I watched 2020 happen as a passionate, patriotic American and realized that someone needed to step up and do something. So as a lifelong resident of the 2nd District, decided that was going to be me.
That's awesome. And what are some of the policies that you think would be beneficial to the country that you'd like to pursue, especially if Republicans take control of Congress, which looks very likely? And what are some of the things that you think need to be stopped?
I think the top list, the top on everybody's list lately has been the economy. Every time you go to the gas station, we are hurting, and we need to bring our energy home. We can be not only energy independent, but energy dominant here in the United States. And because we're absolutely mortgaging even my kids' and grandkids' futures because the hole that they are putting us in with all the reckless spending is absolute insanity. We need to bring manufacturing back home. So when we do get into a situation where we can't get things from, say, China or Russia, we have the ability to be independent here in America.
Yeah. It was pretty incredible. Under Trump, we were energy independent for the first time since, I think, the Eisenhower administration. And now in just 17, 18 months, the Biden administration has managed to completely turn that upside down. Pretty incredible. So what would you do, Charity, in your role as a lawmaker, as a member of Congress, to rein in the Biden administration, hold them accountable for some of the abuses? I know a lot of people are concerned about the weaponization of the Department of Justice. Obviously, people are concerned about the attack on our energy systems and our energy production. What are some of the things that you think Congress ought to do, a Republican Congress, to try to rein this in?
I think restraint of the overreach of the government is huge, but also cutting the regulation on the American people. We have far too many regulations on our businesses that encumber growth, and that's why a lot of our jobs are getting shipped overseas. We have too many regulations on energy. We can be smart and conservationist about how we get energy without completely eliminating it from America. So we need to be able to cut some of those regulations. You need to cut some of the departments that are unnecessary. One of the other areas that the people in my district and myself are very passionate about is our education system. And the Department of Education has been using those purse strings to push things like Common Core and the sexualization and the racism in our classrooms. Excuse me. And the fact is that the federal government has no place to be the authority in our classrooms. And they've been doing it for years. And recently, the Biden administration has become more blatant about it with the threat of the school lunch aid and relating to the transgender issue. But those are some of those things where it's just the government has gotten too big, and we need to rein that in several different areas. Rein the government in and free the people.
Yeah, that's amazing. And we actually have a mutual friend, Dr. Duke Pesta, has come out with a really strong endorsement for you. And, if Dr. Pesta endorses you, as far as I'm concerned, you're the one. But talk about Dr. Duke Pesta and get a little bit more into education. I know that's one of Dr. Duke's passions. He, of course, does his show every day, the Dr. Duke Show, which is fantastic. And I personally believe that education is the critical issue. What do you see as the proper role of the federal government in terms of education, and what would you do to bring that about?
I believe the proper role of the federal government is to stay out of education. That's not going to be an overnight transformation from a freshman congresswoman. So in the meantime, we need to cut the budget down, because a perfect example of it is they say they have, I'm going to forget the exact numbers, but like $100 to $200 billion in the budget. But then with the American Families Plan and the American Jobs Plan, it gets it almost to $6 billion. Forgive me, 1 to 2 billion to 6 billion. I misspoke there. And the truth is, it is an exorbitant amount of money going to manipulate what goes on in our classrooms. And so we need to cut that budget down and not tie it to social issues. If we're going to tie it to anything, it needs to be academic results. And I think that it would be highly beneficial, and I will very much push to put and incentivize trade programs and apprenticeships in our schools, because it's not just moms that are upset about our education system. People in the workforce, manufacturers and commerce, the Restaurant Association are all groups that have talked to me about education, because the kids aren't coming out ready to work. And we've almost, our trades are suffering. I was doing an apprenticeship, but so few do, because we're told that college is the way to go and not offered any other options. And so we need to be able to offer kids the option to have the choice to not just go to college. And that's definitely a goal of mine.
Wonderful. And you say on your website that you value our constitutional freedoms, and there's been a debate raging in our country for some time about whether the Constitution is a living document or whether it means what it says. Some recent Supreme Court decisions indicate that the court seems to be moving back in the direction of the Constitution actually meaning what it says. But how do you feel about that? Because when you get sworn in, you're going to put your hand on the Bible, presumably, and swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States. What does that mean to you to uphold the Constitution?
I do not believe that it is living in the way that they say. No, it says what it says, and it says that the way it does for a reason. Some of those Supreme Court decisions are tremendous, that we've actually, like you said, gone back to the Constitution. My opponent, Mark Pocan's response to the Dobbs decision was, we need to pack the court and end the filibuster, to change the rules to play our game, essentially. I've been, proud 100% pro-lifer my entire life, and I'm very grateful for them giving that power back to the states. To answer your question, the Constitution needs to be upheld as written. I know gun control is another hot topic, and shall not be infringed is a very simple phrase.
So what do you think about this gun bill that recently passed through Congress with the support of some Republicans, encouraging states to pass red flag laws and adding new regulations? Now we see the ATF is really coming hard after commercial gun dealers, people with FFLs. What do you think about the latest gun control bill? And along with that, a lot of people are concerned about what seems to be a growing number of mass shootings. How do we keep Americans safe from that kind of stuff?
We arm them. That's how it is. We take away the gun regulations. If you go and you look at Brazil in the last years, they've taken away some of the regulations, and their crime has gone way down. As a child, I went to Brazil and was in their cities, and my parents were advised not to let me out of not their sight, but their touch, because it was unsafe back in 2006. And back in 17 or 19, I forget, the new president got in and they cut some of the gun regulations, and the people have been safer, because when you take guns away from law-abiding citizens, then it just leaves it open for the criminals to be the ones with the weapons. And especially when you refuse to close the southern border. There's black market firearms coming in like crazy, and the criminals will be able to get them while the law-abiding citizens will be sitting ducks. That's absolute insanity, and it's a national security issue.
Yeah, it's incredible. And you're right, the Wall Street Journal, actually, John Lott just reported in the Wall Street Journal that homicides went down 34% in Brazil after Jair Bolsonaro, the president, removed some of those gun control regulations and made it easier for private citizens to arm themselves. I used to live in Brazil, and it's incredibly dangerous. And I spent 7 years in Mexico, total gun ban, and yet the cartels rule the country. Murder is orders of magnitude higher than it is in the United States. And it's pretty amazing to see Democrats in America making the same arguments that have been made in all these countries. We know where that goes. Charity, you talked about the border. That's obviously one of the hottest topics right now. I've seen some of the polling data here locally, and that is at the top of voters' concerns. It looks like under the Biden administration so far, over 4 million illegal immigrants have crossed that border illegally. Many of them are just being set free in the country. Biden is giving them de facto amnesty by telling prosecutors not to pursue the cases. What should be done differently, if anything?
First of all, I support the building of the wall because not as a virtue signal or an image, but because the Border Patrol says it works. The men on the ground that have been dealing with the problem say it works, and we need to take their word for it, and not just. I think our politics have gotten a little too focused on the virtue signaling and the image in some areas, and we need to actually do what works. So that wall works. And as you mentioned, the prosecutors not prosecuting. We need more than a slap on the wrist and go about your business mentality with these traffickers. Human trafficking, drug trafficking, the guns. It is all, they're taking American lives, and the current administration isn't taking it seriously. And that's terrifying as a citizen, that your own government and president will not do what it takes to protect you from foreign individuals coming into your country illegally. So that, for the sake of the American citizen, needs to be a top priority and taken more seriously, and the traffickers need to be prosecuted.
Yeah. Absolutely. Charity, a lot of people in America are concerned about what looks to be some very significant cultural decay, moral decay. I mean, this is not the same America that it was 20 years ago. We now have radicals rampaging in the streets, burning down cities. Hating America has become popular. It seems like traditional morality has gone out the window, at least for a lot of the younger people. Do you see that? And do you see it as a problem? And if so, how do we go about fixing that? I mean, maybe it's not something that Congress can fix, but how do we go about trying to restore morality and a sense of American culture from what it's become?
I 100% see that as a problem. And I think there are several things some Congress can help with, some not. As the individual, you need to get involved in your community and understand the fact that what the loudest people are pushing is what should be the norm. The majority of the people do not. So don't be afraid to go out and say, taking a school child to a drag show is not okay, because there's drag queens coming out saying, don't take your kids here. It's not for them. It's not the majority opinion, because it's wrong. And as far as Congress goes, it comes from our education system a lot of ways. They are pushing the socialist, hating America agenda. You mentioned Duke Pesta. He had kids coming into his college class unable to name any other nation other than the U.S. in world history that had ever owned slaves. They are told we're bad for owning slaves, and not realizing that our Constitution set it up for it to be impossible in the future for America to own slaves. That is our Constitution was written the way it was written because it promotes freedom on the long term. And that's how Congress can help, is with the education system and bringing that back home.
Excellent. Charity, we're just about out of time, but how can people find out more about you, your campaign? How can people get involved if they would like to do that?
Absolutely. My website is charityberry, spelled with an A, for congress.com. And I have Facebook is Charity Berry for Congress. Twitter is @BerryCongress. We're also on Instagram. And we absolutely need people to get involved. Even if you don't live in the district, we need people to make phone calls. We obviously are in need of donations. We are hoping to order some big 4x8s. We've got lots of people willing to put those up. We need to get my name out there before that August 9th primary, and then be able to get our message out to people. We've got a lot of different strategies for how to talk to the people that have historically voted for Mark Polk and that doesn't realize what he is exactly in his policies. And so we need donations for that. If you're in district or nearby, we need door knockers and volunteers here on the ground too. But all that can be done through the website, charityberryforcongress.com.
charityberryforcongress.com. Well, Jerry, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for doing this. You know, I know how hard it is to run a campaign. I salute you. I thank you for wanting to get involved for the well-being of your country. I know it's a tremendous sacrifice. So thank you for that. And hopefully we'll get you back on once you're sworn in and we can talk about policy and what's going on Capitol Hill. So thank you again, Charity. We really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Alex.
All righty, folks. That was Charity Berry running for U.S. House in Wisconsin's 2nd District. Go check out the website. And folks, we all need to be involved in the political process. So find some place where you can fit in and get involved. Our country is at stake. Our freedoms are at stake. Sitting on the sidelines is not going to cut it anymore. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Alex Newman. This is Conversations That Matter. Until next time, God bless you all.